Chapter 2. The Story We're Inside of. I don't think it's an accident that VQ wants to emerge right now. At any moment, we exist at the intersection of three stories. The stories we tell ourselves are one of the cornerstones of identity. Sometimes these stories are accurate, sometimes not. Either way, they mold how we see ourselves, our relationships, and our place in the world. The stories we tell each other form the basis of community. Any community, from religion to a PTA to fan communities, revolves around a shared narrative that is reinforced over time by collective action or sharing of stories. The third type of story is the stories we're inside of. These create a neural story net that often invisibly weaves a culture that holds all of us. Right now, the story we're inside of seems custom designed to call forth ideas, practices, and fields like VQ. Consider the current plot points. None of the systems Western culture has relied on for meaning and navigation are stable. Political institutions, economic structures, ecological systems, the social fabric itself are all shifting simultaneously. The emergence of AI intensifies these pressures while raising fundamental questions about the role of the human and the nature of intelligence. Western culture has an abysmal track record with technology, by the way. The pattern is always the same. Instead of letting new tools enhance our lives, we reshape our lives around the tools. We decimated land to build factories and roads. We looted the earth for oil and go to war to protect the supply. We designed our work around the internet instead of letting the internet support the work we were already doing. Cell phones made work inescapable. Social media was supposed to enhance our real-world connections. Instead, it replaced them and helped create an epidemic of loneliness. Every time, while there are definitely benefits, we sacrifice relationship with land, with each other, and with our own bodies for perceived efficiency. The pattern is already repeating with AI, faster and at greater scale. But story systems, like all systems, crave balance. Almost 30 years of working with narrative taught me that every story contains the seeds of its counterstory. Push a narrative far enough in one direction, and the opposite begins to assert itself, not as a correction imposed from outside, but as something the system itself generates. The further a culture leans towards disembodiment, abstraction, speed, and head-level processing, the more forcefully the body, the land, and the felt world push back. This is true of systems more generally. One of the core tenets of systems thinking and complexity theory is that a system tends towards balance. The interplay of negative and positive feedback loops support that balance. When those loops are disabled, the whole system goes out of whack. Western culture and materialist capitalism have, through narrative, social and political influence, disabled many of the negative feedback loops designed to temper out-of-control growth or corruption. You don't have to look any further than the United States government to see the impact of that right now. But this system, this story we're inside of, is more than human. It's vibrational, and it has a consciousness of its own. So as so much collapses, new growth takes place. We can see this everywhere right now. The explosion of somatic therapy and nervous system work, the renewed interest in indigenous wisdom traditions, breath work going from fringe practice to the mainstream, plant medicine moving from counterculture to clinical trials. None of these movements were designed as an explicit response to AI or the separation enforced by Western culture. They've been building for years, but the imbalance is accelerating which accelerates the counter movement. VQ is part of that counter movement. Or maybe it's more accurate to say that VQ is part of the story system generating language for capacities it needs us to recover so that it can come back into balance. Even at the most granular level, our bodies are already doing that work. I noticed a while back that my brain had started doing a complex trust calculation when I read things online. As soon as I click an AI-ism, phrases like sitting with the tension or what I keep coming back to, the level of trust I place in the author dips. If I know them well, less trust is lost. If they're new to me, I immediately stop reading. Whether that's fair or not isn't really the point. The calculation happens unconsciously at a nervous system level. I realized it was happening during a meditation, and I got curious. These phrases aren't bad in and of themselves. A phrase like sitting with the tension when earned indicates that the writer really has spent time with a generative or disturbing tension. That tension has a real felt energy, and that energy has given birth to a thought. The words then carry the energy of that initial tension. When AI offers up the same phrase, there's nothing behind it other than a predictive algorithm, pattern matching. There's no energy. And when we publish something online, we're asking someone to dedicate time, attention, and energy to reading it. Before AI, the base assumption was that the writer had dedicated their own time, attention, and energy to writing the piece. The exchange was more or less equal. With AI, that exchange has gone wonky. Someone can spend less than 5 minutes writing a 2,500-word think piece filled with linguistic signifiers of thought and effort. But the energy isn't there. There's no exchange, or rather, the exchange is extractive. That extractive quality runs through the entire system. The large AI companies trained their models on copyrighted work, scraped without consent, essentially strip mining the creative output of millions of people and treating it as raw material. Companies like OpenAI outsourced content moderations to workers in Kenya paid between $1.32 and $2 an hour to absorb streams of traumatic material. A single large data center can consume up to 5 million gallons of drinking water per day just to stay cool. That's as much as a town of 50,000 people. This pattern stays consistent at every layer. Take without asking or acknowledging the cost to the source. My nervous system reacts to that dynamic with a felt sense of aversion. Not the semantic weirdness of AI-isms, the energy beneath them. My body interprets the use of hollow, unearned language as an act of extraction and acts to remove itself from the relationship. That is vibrational intelligence in action. Before that term made itself known to me, before I had the framework, my body was already doing the work of vibrational discernment, sorting signal from noise, sensing the energetic and vibrational quality of words, and responding accordingly. This isn't just semantics, it's energy. The story we're inside of is one of accelerating disembodiment, cognitive outsourcing, and extraction at every scale. And the counter story, the one our bodies are already telling whether we have language for it or not, is one of re-embodiment and reconnection, of recovering capacities we've always had, and remembering that intelligence isn't just computation, it's sensing, it's coherence, it's attunement to the living world we co-evolved with over millions of years. Vibrational intelligence keeps us tethered to, and if we practice, supportive of life.